Elt forward. Yes. I got you to melt, and then I used it. You turned it into something useful, and the liquid poured forward. Like an explosion of mercury. They were young soldiers taking over Hollywood in 1986. Their war movie was a gem that launched careers that looked like they could not be stopped. But after 40 years, something very bad happened. It cost one star $50,000 to hire prostitutes. And then told a secret that shocked a lot of people. Another person lost everything in a nasty split and now only makes $4,000 a month to live. A third person saved the life of a co-star while they were shooting, but now he is having his own problems. You won't be able to say what happened to these once promising stars. Sheen was only 20 years old when he was thrown into the mud in the Philippines. However, Sheen was not ready for what Oliver Stone had in mind. The set wasn't like one in Hollywood. They had to sleep in the dirt, get screamed at by combat veterans who didn't care that they were actors, and go through real military drills for 2 weeks. Charlie and the rest of the group were bitten by bugs and soaked by tropical rain. It was terrible. Charlie said many years later that he really thought he was going to die during that shoot. He was already falling apart before the cameras even started rolling. But Stone really wanted that to happen. The hurting, the being lost, and the being worn out. All of that would be shown on the screen as the truth. It almost didn't happen. Emilio Estevez was meant to get the role. Then Keanu Reeves. Both fell. But Charlie caught Stone's eye in some way. A broken edge just below the surface, something that would work great for a scared, good-hearted kid who was thrown into Vietnam. Charlie was 21 years old when Platoon finally came out in 1986. The movie was a huge hit. Oscars, cheers, and fame. But Charlie started to burn instead of rise. The fire didn't really go out. He told the truth under oath in 1995 that he had spent at least $50,000 on women. He got in trouble that same year for hitting his girlfriend over the head with the floor. He still laughed and smiled in public. Things got darker, less stable, and more broken behind the scenes, though. By 2011, the cracks were huge. Because of interviews, drug binges, and threats against his co-stars, he was fired from 2.5 Men. He called himself a warlock with tiger blood in the movies he put online. He said he was a winner while everyone else saw him fall apart. That should have been the end. Then 2015 came along. He told millions of people that he had HIV. He knew for a long time. He kept it a secret, paid people off, and became more ashamed and careless. But as soon as he said it, more people were getting tested for HIV at clinics across the country. People began to ask for help and get answers. The Sheen effect was the name for it. It's possible that the man who was the subject of every late-night joke saved lives without even realizing it. He had little money and a lot of scandal, but he managed to stay living. He said he wasn't drinking or using drugs by 2017. At first, friends didn't believe it. He had said it before. Things were different this time, though. He wasn't after the cameras. He stayed home and watched movies. Being a dad and making dinner. Then the twist that no one saw coming happened. Charlie, who is now 60 years old, put out a book and a Netflix documentary in 2025. It's slow, quiet, and almost reflective. He opened a door there that he had never opened before in his whole life. He talked about being with people of the same gender. It's just the truth, not as rumors or shocks. He didn't make any labels because he didn't want to. He talked about how wonderful it was and how he had spent decades trying to be someone else when he could finally just be himself. Tom Berenger. Tom Berenger was born on May 31, 1949, as Thomas Michael Moore. And for years, he went about his life in Hollywood without being seen. Another actor in New York who was having a hard time and working low-paying jobs. He first worked as a hotel bellhop and then at a chemical plant. There was no easy way out and no sudden miracle. He didn't get his big break on TV until 1975, on the soap opera One Life to Live. He was in his late 20s at the time. He held on tighter and pushed more. And by the time Platoon came out in 1986, he had finally made a name for himself. But it wasn't easy to play Sergeant Barnes. It hurt to get there. Oliver Stone didn't just give him a story when he hired him. All of the group and Berenger were thrown into a real jungle in the Philippines, with no comforts. They were then put through a military boot camp. They had to walk through mud, sleep in the rain, carry 40-pound packs, and eat almost nothing. It was hard to stay alive for 2 weeks in a row. Berenger lost 28 pounds. For 16 hours a day, they shot, even though they were tired, scared, and bitten by mosquitoes. It was no longer playing. And you could feel the cost when he looked into the camera with those blank, war-torn eyes. Things were just as raw off-screen, though. Berenger made a name for himself by playing strong guys. But he kept losing what was important to him in real life. 4 marriages broke up. 6 kids. A lot of them were raised apart. In 2011, he was going through one of the worst times of his life. He was in the middle of a nasty divorce, and his lawyer gave him a legal change that he barely read. It cost him more than $100,000. His rights were taken away. His trust was broken. He said years later that he never fully got over being betrayed. The movie business stopped calling as often. The signs lost his name. As everyone else went on to new people, Berenger took a step back. He lives in peace with his 4th wife Laura Moretti, far from the noise of premieres and red carpets, now that he is 76 years old. Fans still know who he is. People see the fighter but not the man who gave up almost everything to become famous. He broke the rules. His name is Willem Dafoe and he was born in Appleton, Wisconsin. He chose not to. In fact, he was kicked out of high school for being in an adult movie. After many years, he laughed it off. He said, "I just wanted out." It turned into a theme. Dafoe never tried to become famous. He was after energy. And by 1986, when Platoon came along, he was already well known in the underground theater world. But that movie changed everything. He was also thrown into Stone's jungle, where things were crazy. 30 days of training in the military under Vietnam. The Dale die. They had to march, crawl, and get faked attacked with real explosives. Every day, they were on edge. After that, Dafoe got yellow fever. It wasn't a side story, it was real. It was very hot, and he was having hallucinations. He still went to his scenes, though. He didn't care about the heat. It was too important a job. Sergeant Elias was more than just a soldier. He was the moral of the story, and Dafoe put everything he had into him. Things he did got weirder after Platoon. He was fired from Heaven's Gate because he laughed during a serious scene, even though he had been still for 8 hours. Years later, on the movie Antichrist, director Lars von Trier used to fake Dafoe's private parts because he thought Dafoe's real body was too big for people to understand. Dafoe also laughed that one off. The movie Speed 2 got him a Golden Raspberry nod, but only 3% of people who saw it liked it on Rotten Tomatoes. Then he played a bushman in The Hunter who had to skin a wallaby in just one take where the animal would blow up. He did a great job. Not a single reason or second chance. He played parts that were painful, didn't make sense, or would have scared most artists. As part of a stage play, he had to play a chicken heart over and over again until the beat felt alive. It paid off to take risks. He was nominated for 4 Oscars and never stopped working, from Wes Anderson movies to Nosferatu in 2025. He is a citizen of both the United States and Italy and lives in both Rome and New York. He still walks the streets like he never wanted to be famous. He is worth about $40 million, but money was never the point. He himself said it. He only wants to keep vanishing into different people. Even though he is 70 years old, Willem Dafoe is still very active. Crazy, unexpected, and full of life. He lost a job once because he laughed, but he never stopped moving forward. The focused and twisted look on his face still haunts the screen. Whitaker Forest, Whitaker Forest. What a different look in Whitaker's eyes when he went into the woods as Big Harold. He was only 28 years old. He was 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighed about 75 kilograms. His body was strong, but the heat, sweat, and fear of the Philippine shoot would break him down in more ways than one. He didn't have many words in the part, but it was harder to fake. Pure, spooky quiet. The way he moved and sat made you feel the weight of the war. Oliver Stone asked for reality, and Forrest gave it to him, but it cost a lot. He was going to get bigger and stronger and become a big herald, but the jungle didn't care about his plans. The food was awful and it drained him quickly. The work was hard, and by the time they were halfway through filming, he had lost almost 8 clones. What began as planning turned into survival. He got a sharper look in his eyes, and that unsaid fear started to feel real, not staged, but real. The machete then showed up. It wasn't even a day to film. They had just been training and were trying to live like troops while they were out. With all of his anger and tiredness building up, Forrest saw a coconut, raised his sword, and swung it. He took a hit from the blade, but it hit him right on the thumb. There was a lot of blood quickly, which shocked everyone. But what he remembers is the fear and how it tasted as it ran down his arms. It was meant to be fake. But all of a sudden, it wasn't. He was rushed to a doctor, but it was still practice. It wasn't even the real shoot, but that moment was hard for him to forget. When he won an Oscar years later for his role as Eddie Amin in The Last King of Scotland, people talked about how intense, transformative, and bold he was. But before all of that, he was just a young actor in the woods, being crushed by the weight of someone else's war. Oliver Stone told him, "You're supposed to be Big Harold," when he saw that he had lost weight. However, the name didn't matter any longer. It was important that the camera caught everything. The tired look on his face, the 1,000-yard stare, and the way his body looked like it had been worn down by something bigger than him. This is Forrest in 2025. He is 64 years old, but the way he walks is still quiet and beautiful. He still looks like Big Harold. The man who went into the woods for a part and will always carry parts of it with him. Neil David. Keith David was 30 years old when he got to work. At 6 feet 2 inches, he was all muscle and had a gravel voice. People called him king both on and off the set, not just because of the part he played but also because of how he acted. When he spoke, people stopped and paid attention. But it was when he spoke that saved a life. They were on a Huey chopper one day during a shoot. It wasn't a set. It was true. That line was meant to be fuzzy in Platoon in every way. The helicopter tipped over without notice. Charlie Sheen fell toward the open side. He was still young and careless. Death and the jungle below were also real. Keith didn't even think. He grabbed Sheen by the back of his jacket and pulled him back inside. Not planned or rehearsed, that one moment changed everything. He would have turned into something much darker if he had been a second slower. That story is forgotten. Behind the scenes didn't seem real. People who were there, though, will never forget. Sheen will always remember. Keith David kept going forward. He built a business that didn't depend on FaceTime. His voice became the mark of the worlds. Anything from Gargoyles and Spawn to Halo, Call of Duty, and Ken Burns films. He was there, and that deep, warm roar in his throat brought everything down to earth. He'll be 69 years old by 2025. Sure, his jawline isn't as sharp as it used to be, but he has more authority now. The way he walks and talks is still like a soldier. Finally, in 2026, he will get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Anyone who has read his work knows it's long overdue. He called it the cherry on top. He doesn't fade away into storytelling work in this story. He's still playing jazz, showing up, and making art. And through it all, he carries the weight of that helicopter save, the lines he spoke in sweaty silence, and the strength that didn't go away when the cameras stopped shooting. Kevin Dillon went to Vietnam when he was only 21 years old. It was hot and chaotic there. Or at least the one made by Oliver Stone. He wasn't the star, but he didn't need to be. He played the soldier Bunny in Platoon. Bunny was crazy and unstable, and he had a creepy laugh and a haunted look on his face. It was easy to remember the things he said when he did. Everyone kept hearing the same line over and over. He screamed shit after beating a peasant badly with a rifle. Did you see that head fall off, man? The way they were acting didn't make you like the character. You felt your skin crawl when they were acting. It put Kevin Dillon on the map in Hollywood right away. But being famous doesn't always mean being free. And Dillon found himself stuck in the same role as that figure. Angry, nervous, and crazy-eyed. Making a new name for himself took years, and it wasn't until 2004 that he really changed things. The show Entourage on HBO gave him a new start. As Johnny Dramachase, he was older, more desperate, less sure of himself, and always trying to reach the fame that was just out of reach. It was sad and funny at the same time, and Dillon did a great job with it. The show ran for 8 years and made him famous all over the world, taking him out of the shadow of Platoon. Made the shortlist for 3 Emmys and 1 Golden Globe. It gave him something special, though. A lot of money. Over the course of the show's run, with the most money coming in at $150,000 per episode. The 2015 movie also made another $2 million. He made $13 million just from Entourage. Still, getting ahead wasn't easy. Kevin was born in Melville, New York, in 1965. He was one of 6 children in a large family. Matt Dillon, his brother, became a teen hero, but Kevin went in a darker direction in movies. Things were also not stable off-screen. In 2006, he married Jane Stewart and they had a daughter named Ava. He already had another daughter from a past relationship. Her name was Amy. But by 2019, in courtrooms and the news, the marriage fell apart. In papers, his ex-wife told the horrible truth. Kevin used to make a lot of money, but after the Entourage wave crashed, he was now living on just $4,000 a month to pay his bills and child support. He couldn't quit, though. Keeping himself busy, he switched to action and drama movies. Eventually, he joined the world of podcasts with Victory the Podcast, where he is joined by his old band of co-stars. At 59 years old, his face doesn't look as sharp and young as it did in the jungle scenes of Platoon, but the humor is still there. Hey, John C. McGinley. John C. McGinley's trip into Platoon was pretty much a mistake. He wasn't well known in 1984. As a substitute, he was only there to help out. When a casting agent saw John Turturro off of Broadway. After a few weeks, he was thrown into the bush in the Philippines and saw one of the most realistic war movies ever made. At age 27, he played Sergeant O'Neill, the weak-willed survivor who hides under dead bodies during the bloody ending of the movie and makes it through it all. It wasn't a hero part, it was a Messier one. What people didn't see was what went on behind the camera, cowardice dressed up as cleverness to stay alive at all costs. Dale, a Vietnam veteran, set up a tough boot camp for McGinley and the group. There was no coddling or trailers. Live fire drills, mud, and no sleep. Later, McGinley said that by the time the camera rolled, he could feel the blanks flying past his ears. The fear wasn't acting, it was real. The movie caused a cultural earthquake, and McGinley's performance stood out because it was so real. It wasn't flashy or loud, but it was disturbing. When Platoon was over, McGinley didn't slow down. His career took off in ways that no one saw coming. Dramas, comedies, and cult parts. Most people know him as Dr. Cox from Scrubs, who spit insults like a machine gun and made anger feel good. What happened off-screen was more important, though. Things changed in 2001. After the birth of his son Max, who has Down syndrome, the Hollywood hustle stopped being as important to him. It was called a cosmic hammer by McGinley. Things changed. He took a step back, put projects on hold, and focused on Max, who had heart problems and serious sleep apnea. The job stopped for a while. The dad took over. After that, something amazing took place. McGinley did not go away. He changed. He spoke out loudly and often for people with Down syndrome. He helped get bills passed. He made people more aware. He used everything he had to fight for kids like Max, and he also got back into playing comedies, guest parts, and Hallmark movies. He became famous again when Scrubs came back in 2025, when he was 66 years old. still very sharp and very hot. Mr. Johnny Depp. At age 22, Johnny Depp found himself in the middle of a jungle in the Philippines. He had never been outside of the United States before. He wasn't famous yet. The movie wasn't even meant to remember him. However, what took place on the Platoon set in 1985 did more than test his body. It changed his life forever. To be Pavity, the part was easy. There is a translator in the group named Gator Learner. It was only a small part with a few scenes, but everything was different behind the camera. Oliver Stone had written a bigger part for a storyline that was more like a supporting one at first. But Depp's scenes were quietly cut down when it became clear that anything too strong would take away from Charlie Sheen's major role. He didn't say anything, he just went to one of the roughest boot camps Hollywood had ever seen and didn't say a word. Depp and the rest of the group lived like soldiers for 2 weeks. There were no trailers, hotel rooms, or baths. There were only foxholes, bugs, hunger, and being worn out all the time. They stayed in character all day and night. Dale Dye, a Vietnam warrior who wasn't nice to anyone, was in charge. It wasn't acting anymore, it was just getting by. It really was hot and scary. It was easy to follow the rules, eat, move, and suffer like troops. Depp didn't say much in the movie, but when he did, it was important. Sergeant Barnes kills a woman with a single shot in the village questioning scene. The screaming has to be translated by Depp's character. His voice shakes. The words are spoken slowly. They don't know what to do. The show wasn't real. It was a second. He wore a helmet that said Sherry Lynn written on it. His way of staying in touch with his girlfriend back home, Sherry Lynn Fenn. In the middle of a war zone made up for movies, there was a quiet revolt. A lot of people forgot about Depp from the movie. It didn't matter when it came out in December 1986. He could remember it. He never tried out for a small part again after that. By the time Platoon came out, Depp had already been hired for 21 Jump Street. He was a teen star now, but he still missed the jungle. It had been real, the mud, the sweat, and the quiet. It gave him a sense that he could disappear that no other role could. Into anything. People didn't forget the name Francesco Quinn, which he was born with in Rome on March 20, 1963. Anthony Quinn was his father. He was a giant and won an Oscar. Antony's second wife had a son named Francesco. People in Hollywood expected him to live up to something bigger than life as soon as he got there. He got the part of R.A. in Platoon when he was 23. R.A. was a moody, angry soldier who sold drugs, kept secrets, and looked at everything with a survivor's gaze. R.A. wasn't another figure in the story. He was the stress. He did not need to act. That wasn't the only reason Francesco was acting strange. He tried to get away from one. His dad's shadow was over everything. His last name got him into more places, but it also made every tryout a threat. Platoon was his big break. At the 1987 Academy Awards, the movie won Best Picture. He was seen by many. Directors got a call. It looked like he was going to get away for a while. But Francesco never became a star, and he never went away either. He had a job. A lot of parts showed up. He was in 24, Jag, The Shield, and The Young and the Restless. He changed his name to Thomas Del Ciro and became a writer who lived alone. He played soldiers, cops, and drug addicts. People gave him good reviews for the short western The Tonto Woman, which he made in 2008 based on a story by Elmore Leonard. Was nominated for an Oscar. A lot of people looked at him again. After that, Transformers came out. 2011's Dark of the Moon. He did the voice of Dino, an Autobot. He was 48 years old. It turned out to be his last movie. Everything stopped on August 5, 2011. Francesco and his son Max were running in Malibu. It was just going to be another day. Then he fell down. Someone nearby saw him fall. They jumped in to help. Just like that, his wife was there when he died. Gone. No long fight in the hospital. Not a story. Just a quick stop. A heart attack. Genetics might work. Stress, maybe. There might be something that no one could explain. He died in the street next to the kid he was trying to take care of. Francesco's story didn't end on a red carpet. People did remember the way he looked in Platoon, though. That shaky piece. That depth. That edge of danger. Had something inside him. Something that didn't want to be seen all the time but never let go. He was Francesco in RA, and he left us too soon. Tony Todd. They put him in the hot, wet woods of the Philippines when he was 31 years old, gave him a gun, and told him to act like he was in Vietnam. Tony Todd didn't have to do anything, though. He was born with war in his bones. This isn't a war with guns, it's the quiet war of being black in Hollywood and having to work twice as hard just to be seen. For 54 days in February 1986, Platoon was shot in a very harsh way. The actors weren't just troops, they were soldiers. They slept on the ground, marched until their feet hurt, and practiced with Dale Dye, who had been through Vietnam himself. And got ready for blasts that weren't fake enough to make them feel safe. Todd was right in the middle of it all. Strong. The man who played Sergeant Warren was still like a rock that didn't speak unless it had to. Oliver Stone saw something in him that no one else in the business had seen. He hired him after seeing Todd do a one-man show in a dark Hell's Kitchen theater, not from an interview room. Johnny Got His Gun was the name of the play. As Todd stood there by himself, he used the voice of a fighter who had lost everything except his mind. It wasn't a Hollywood show. The act of survival was carved into the show. Stars were not what Stone wanted, he wanted real people. Tony's face showed that he had been poor, worked hard in the theater, and been turned down so many times that it was like drowning. Todd had a voice that you could remember. It is clear, deep, and surrounded with gravel. There was no care in Hollywood. It heard the voice and gave him monsters, ghosts, and other characters. His role in Candyman in 1992 made him famous, but it also put him in a cage he didn't want. A black man with mythical strength who was scary but never takes the lead. He was built like a hero, trained like a classical actor, and had the soul of someone who had been through a lot to get where they were. But he kept being cast as shadows. Never see the sun. When his work began to improve, he married Fatima Cortez. But the attention doesn't make things warmer. It makes things harder. There were a lot of long shoots, gatherings, and fans who wanted the monster more than the man. Love didn't go away all at once, but it did bend under the stress. Todd didn't slow down, though. He became famous again after Final Destination. He played a mortician who didn't fear death but saw it as a beat. He always had the same amount of power in every part he played. There is peace on the outside and fire inside. When he was 65, the world still hadn't given him the parts he did deserve. He worked anyway, even though it hurt, was quiet, and he was getting chemo. He told almost no one that he had stomach cancer, but the doctor told him. He'd smile on set, make jokes, then go away to quietly deal with his body's rejection. Bloodlines, his last movie, was finished just a few months before he died. There's a scene they didn't write and a speech he made up on the spot. He looked the camera straight in the eye and said, "Don't waste your time loathing life. You only have that breath." It wasn't cut. No one was brave. He passed away on November 6, 2024. 99. Fans didn't just post Candyman lines when the news came out, either. They talked about the awkward moments, the Platoon moments, the theater parts, and the wise words hidden in the horror.